Welcome to Tattooed Tabletop. On today's video, we're going to be speed painting some Stormcast Eternals. So why would anyone be speed painting? Well, maybe you got all your models built. Maybe you got all your models primed. But just maybe you haven't painted them yet. This is a very real problem that all wargamers face at some point in their hobbying career somewhere down the line. You started a project, you haven't finished it, but you're really excited to bring them to a tournament and you need to get them done. Speed painting kind of offers a nice little alternative where you can get your models to a certain tabletop standard and be able to bring them to the tournament without them looking too shabby. So the nice thing about speed painting is, on a very real level, it's very accessible, even if you're brand new to the hobby. You could be a hobby veteran and have years and years of painting under your belt, or you could be brand new and be able to get this to a nice little standard where, at the very least, when you're done and maybe you take it to the tournament and at the very end of it, you can still take it and elevate it to the next level because you gave yourself that good starting point. Whatever paints you choose, just be sure that you pick paints that have a certain opacity to them, which means that they cover over that initial coat that you put down, so in that way you can just do 1 to 2 coats and call it a day. The point of this is speed, and the only way that we're going to be able to do that is if your paint covers. So for today, for these Stormcast Eternals, we're just going to paint 5 Vindictors. I've got a few different models, including the Prime model, which is the leader, and I also have a banner. That's going to give us a nice little base point where we can actually see the different details with each model and shows that this method of painting covers all of them. Alright, so for our very first step, these are Stormcast Eternals. These are specifically Hammers of Sigmar Stormcast Eternals, so we got to get them gold. And today we'll be using Tooth & Coat's Dragon's Gold. It's a nice little gold paint that actually covers really nicely in a very short period of time, so let's get through that. Always give your paints a very good shake. In particular for the Tooth & Coats, I just have this fun little thing where if I shake it with just the cap, it kind of starts to leak out. So we're just going to get a little bit of that and spread that out on the palette here a little bit. Not too much, just enough to get us started. And then we're going to take a very small dry brush. And the reason we're going to be doing this dry brushing is because it's going to cover a lot of the model without being too aggressive. It's going to actually have a nice layering effect, and it's going to utilize the base undercoat. So you just find all the spots that are gold, and you just lightly dry brush them on. This is more of actually, I'd say, a heavy dry brush, but it's going to give you a nice layer to your paint there and cover everything that you needed to cover in that nice layer while still leaving certain elements of it black, which will kind of create this nice little aggressive contrast between the two.
Alright, well, this is what it will look like when it's done, and I'm just gonna apologize right now because this is gonna be our view for the rest of the video. Unfortunately, my front camera really wasn't that focused, and yeah, so we're here, but that's okay. We're still gonna cover a lot. So again, this is what your gold's gonna look like after you dry brush, but now it's time to get the blue. So for this color, we're going to be using Cantor Blue. It's a little bit of a darker blue, but at the end of the day, it's going to kind of sit a little better. And it's also got a much better opacity, which means anytime that we spilled gold on a shoulder pad or on the shield, it's just going to cover a little bit better. Look at those cuticles, though. Let's really focus. Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll go back to the painting. That's all right. But so as you can see, we're applying the Cantor Blue, and of course, make sure you do it in nice thin coats so that it's nice and smooth. But again, that opacity is gonna do wonders for us. So start covering the shoulder pads there and the shield, and then we'll hop on to the next step. Alright, next we're going to be hopping on to the red details, which in this case was going to be the handle of the spear and the plume on his helmet. We're just going to keep it nice and simple. We're going to use Corn Red by Citadel, but you can use whatever color you want. You want to use Mephiston, go for it. You want to use darker, brighter, go for it. Doesn't really matter. But essentially, we're just going to get that paint, make sure it's nice and thin, as per usual, and then we're just going to start covering it. Now, if you're looking at this model and you're starting to notice, hey, there's silver details, and I don't remember James talking about those silver details. Well, that's because I forgot. I'm not gonna lie. I did it, completely spaced on it. So here it is. I just used Vallejo Air Metal Silver. Recently, for metals, I like to use the Air variant. It just flows smoother. The coverage is incredible, especially the Vallejo metals. They're great. Love them to death. So I did it on the spear, and I did it on the tassels there. Tassels? Nah, coif, whatever that is. You see it. It's, in front of him and it's behind him. And I also did it on the belt buckle. But we're going to cover the red here, and then we will hop on to the next step. Alright, for the next step, we're going to hop on and cover the leather straps, which are just going to be 2 straps on the inside of his arm for the shield, his little knife sheath in the back. And why did I put a transition there? Because there was a lot of dead air, and that's just what happens sometimes. But for this, we're going to use Dark Umber by Monument Hobbies. I tend to like to use this for a lot of my leather colors, but again, everything in this video is substitutable. I'd argue, except for the Dragon's Gold by Two Thin Coats. That stuff is like liquid gold. Okay, I caught that. That is a weird pun. But you're just going to start covering the leather straps there with the Dark Umber, and don't worry about the rest. Next, we're just going to hop on to the white. Now, with the Stormcast Eternals, they actually have white lightning bolts on their shield and a white Mark of Sigmar on their shoulder pads. So for this, we're going to be using Wolf Grey by Vallejo. This is particularly going to be from their game color line, which is a little different than their model color, but honestly, I picked this up a little while ago. Its opacity is incredible, its coverage is fantastic, and this is just, basically you're just going to paint it over that sigil. Now, this is the biggest part. If you're going to take away anything from this video, it's this. Miniature painting is angles. A lot of this is really easy to paint if you have your brush at the right angle. As you can see, I'm holding it parallel to the raised details on the shoulder there, which is really allowing me to cover what I need to and completely skip over what I don't need to. Especially here when we focus in on these lightning bolts. They are sitting really close to the gold. Oh my God, Chris, what happened? Did you trip? Oh, for God's sake. All right, well, he's got it still now. But as you can see, we're going to use the angles of the brush and the angles of the miniature to just pick out those raised details and really just kind of pick everything up without touching anything else. Just move the brush along, and before you know it, you'll cover all those details and it will look super, super crisp. All right, and next we're just gonna hop on to one of the last details, the scrolls. Now, I know what you're thinking, that's a very tan color. Well, that's weird because I'm using Vallejo Medium Gray. I don't know why they call it medium gray. I use this for my scrolls or anything else, skulls, anything that's kind of got that tan finish to it. I really like them. But again, it's all about angles. Just positioning your brush there so that you're picking up those raised details. And notice how I'm intentionally leaving some areas completely black. That's because that's going to create that sort of high contrast, and that's really going to help finish that up. Alright, and as you can see, he's looking pretty spiffy. He's actually almost done here, but for the last little bit, don't set him down. There we go. Pick him back up. What we have here is just, we need to cover the joints. These are the spots where armor isn't on the inside of his arm, and of course on the boots. So for this, we're actually going to use Black Legion, which is that sort of extremely opaque contrast that Games Workshop has. It's super fantastic for stuff like this, so you can see me getting it right there under the armpit there where the armor actually isn't. And in this case, we're a little out of focus. Oh, do we want to look down? There we go. And of course, we start covering the boot. Now, this might take 2 coats just because we have that gold that might have trickled on there from our earliest dry brushing step, but we basically just want to cover that in completely black. Now, I know what you're thinking. I can't help but notice that the inside of that shield isn't painted. And you are correct. This is a speed paint. No one looks at the inside of the shield. You see that beautiful outer shield? People are looking at the outer shield, not the inner shield. We'll worry about that later. But we're just going to cover those up with that Black Legion, and we'll just pass that on to the rest of the other models, and let's take a look at some of them. Look at them. Look at them. Look at him facing the other way. Perfect. Alright, so let's wrap up here. So we'll take one last look at the unit here. So, there you go. 5 Vindictors. Oh, yep, leaders facing the other way. We'll turn them around in a little bit here after we get some better focus here. There we go, a little better. But you can use these steps to replicate this across your entire Stormcast army, whether it's oh, there's my shoe. Alright guys, I'm just going to be honest. Thanks for sticking this one out. I promise we learned a lot on the next one. We've applied it. It works. So, but at least you still got something out of this video. You got some steps on how to replicate the Hammers of Sigmar en masse. So utilizing those steps, you can get these guys straight to the table and get playing. And after this, you can just do some basing and you'll be good to go. Well, go paint something.